We move on to react to Rodrygo saying Brazil need Neymar to win um, the World Cup in 2026. First of all, okay, no, let's not say that actually. Look, before I want to just qualify or maybe even disqualify my opinion on this topic. I am, since all my life, been a huge fan. My favorite team, my favorite national team, and yes, this is over my home country, the United States men's national team. My favorite national team, the team I root for, the team I'm a fan of, has been the Brazil national team. Probably I'd say out of every sports team that I root for across football, basketball, soccer, this is the one I have the most passion, most love, is most deeper rooted inside me. Slightly ahead of the San Francisco 49ers, who actually had a big W today on Monday Night Football. But going back to the main point, Brazil is something is always been a huge fan over. And second of all, Neymar Jr. has also been my favorite player, sports athlete ever. Across any sports, Neymar is my favorite athlete. So I just want to qualify or disqualify myself from this topic. But yes, Rodrygo said Brazil need Neymar fit to win the 2026 World Cup. Rodrygo said in a ESPN Brazil interview, he's our star, our best player. Anyone can see it, how much he is missed. Having Neymar healthy, which is what we all want, and he is in the final stages of recovery. We want him back as soon as possible. Brazil, in the Tumblr World Cup qualifiers, they started off with 2 wins and 1 loss. Then they went on to lose 3 consecutive matches to Uruguay, Colombia, and Argentina, and put them in a bad position of 6th place after 6 games. But now with this win that Brazil got over Ecuador on Friday, they're now 10th place and moved up to 4th place. They go on to take Paraguay on. They have to go to Paraguay, to Asuncion on Tuesday to take on the Paraguayan national team, led by Julian Ciso and Miguel Almiron. But going back to Brazil, I don't need to go too far into this game. I just need to go to this Brazil-Ecuador game. Again, just really a lifeless performance from Brazil. They got the win, a sort of moment of magic early from Rodrygo. In the first half, they were pretty decent. Brazil showed some quality in that first half, were able to be good in that second half. Couldn't take the game by the scruff of the neck, couldn't take Ecuador, couldn't, what's the word? Slammed the door shut on Ecuador, kept them in the game. I thought Ecuador had some good moments. I thought that second half was even between the two teams. And again, Brazil lacks that X factor. Brazil lacked that fear factor. And this Brazilian team is not to the level of a Brazilian national team that we grew up seeing. Not even, that my parents grew up seeing. Or to an extent, me grew up seeing. The teams that I saw in the 2018 and 2022 World Cups are way better than this Brazilian team, because at least those players had a lot of great players. How many great players does this Brazilian national team have that we saw take the field at this Copa America or in this game against Ecuador? You got Vinicius, who never shows up for Brazil, is nowhere near the caliber of player that he is for Real Madrid, for the Brazilian national team. And we saw that again at when they took on Ecuador. Rodrygo, no, I'm not giving him great. I'm giving him really good. He's not great. He's not world class. Let me rephrase that. He's not world class. That's about it. Maybe a completely fit. Okay, Alisson. Sorry, Alisson is a world class player as well, but he's a goalkeeper. When we talk about Brazil, the goalkeeper shouldn't be the best. That's the crazy thing about this. The goalkeeper is the best player for Brazil. When has that been the case? When has that, and this is obviously excluding Neymar, who's out for injury. When has that been a case? Besides Allison and Vinicius, you know, that's about it for Brazil. That's about it for Brazil in terms of great world class sort of players. Um, and there's a huge issue with this Brazilian national team. Huge issue. The quality is not there as it was before. It just flat out isn't. And they're lacking that sort of great world class, top level player that we see of the Brazilian teams of the past. They have one who's injured right now in Neymar, which we don't know what will he'll be post this sort of ACL injury, this bad injury that he suffered being age 32. But we know just based on what we've seen from his career, the pure quality, he's, when you talk about some of the players that Brazil has had, the crazy talent, Ronaldinho, the R9, Ronaldo, the real Ronaldo, Ronaldinho, uh, Zico, Socrates, Pele, these sort of Kaká, these sort of players, the only player Brazil has now that fits in with those sort of legendary sort of players is Neymar. Who's kind of, who's in the later stages of the recovery from the injury. So if he is fit and firing and is, that sort of caliber player that he was before the injury, yes, absolutely, Brazil need him to win the World Cup because he is the only player. He's the only player of that caliber that can provide a little bit of flair to this team and that huge quality that this team is missing. That consistent sort of player that has the quality to beat a man, that can play in extreme types places, that can take the game by the scruff of the neck and completely take it over, like he did in that Copa America final against Argentina, in which they didn't lose. But you ask the Argentinian players, and Rodrygo, you ask him the best performance he says Neymar in that game. That is, that's the only player that is that sort of level of caliber for this Brazil team. And will it be enough to put into this team to win the World Cup? It remains to be seen. I need to see a little bit more on how this team does develop under Dorival Jr. heading into that World Cup. But there's some major issues in the team. The fullbacks are not good enough. Arana, Danilo, Yankoto. These are not players that can create going forward. That are world class sort of players at fullback. Defensively, Marquinhos is not been the same player. Gabriel, he's been a decent center half for Arsenal, but is he to that sort of level? No. Eder Militao, when he's fit and firing, yes, he could be. The midfield wise, Grimaris is a good piece. Paquetá, he's a clever and tidy player that has a little bit of creativity, but is he that sort of world class number 10, like that can create, that's a brilliant midfielder? Is he a Kaká level player? No, he is not. Vinicius Jr., Rodrygo, can they show up for Brazil? Can they be what they are for Real Madrid, for Brazil, specifically Vinicius Jr.? And then Neymar can sort of fit into there if Neymar is back to firing at his best. And then, a hold that number that Brazil has had, basically all my life of watching Brazil, that number 9, that consistent goal scorer, going back. They've never, 2014, they had Fred up there that wasn't that sort of player. 2018, Gabriel Jesus didn't score a single goal at that World Cup. 2022, Richarlison, like he had a good game against Serbia at that World Cup, but he is not a world class number 9. Number 9 has been an issue. Now they'll hope that by the time of the 2026 World Cup that Endrick can sort of be that sort of player. But again, he's only going to be 19 years old at that World Cup. Being heavily reliant on that sort of player at that age to get the goals consistently is not the biggest recipe. Is not the best recipe for success for this Brazilian national team. So, yeah, I think, yes, Neymar is definitely needed for Brazil to win this World Cup because they lack that world class sort of player. But again, The fit is also important. Sometimes Brazil, when Neymar's playing for Brazil, everything goes through him instead of Neymar being a part of the Brazilian attack. It almost is that Neymar is the Brazilian attack, and sometimes it's he has to be the Brazil attack because the, he just is the what they have, the best that they have, and sometimes the only thing that they have going forward because of how the pressure gets to the other players. But if Dorville Jr. can set up this sort of attack, which Neymar is part of a brilliant front three and not is the front three, I think that is the better recipe for success. But it remains to be seen. Obviously, it's a game to game for Brazil. But from what I see so far from this Brazilian national team, they are way off it in terms of competing for the 2026 World Cup. But in the lead up to the 2018 World Cup, they were it was sort of something similar, that Copa America in 2016, they got eliminated in the group stages, but they were able to find something going forward quickly leading into the World Cup, and they staged in that World Cup, in my opinion, a world-class team that just lost to a Belgium team that took advantage of individual opportunities in that game. Can Brazil do this again? Can Brazil sort of set up a team on the fly to compete at the 2026 World Cup? We will see. We shall see. But of course, Neymar coming back will be a huge, huge part in that. No questions. No questions asked.